All the evidence shows and tells us that he used a knife, a K-bar knife, and that's a weapon we believe was used to commit all the murders.
Hey everyone, it's Lucky with Unfiltered Lucky, and today I want to talk a little bit about the Idaho 4 case. Now, in my last video, we talked a little bit about Olivia Gonzalez and her interview with Brian Entin. We talked about her search for answers because obviously, even after Brian Kohberger has pled guilty to this crime, she still has a lot of questions. And who wouldn't? I mean, think about what the prosecution is trying to tell us. They're asking us to believe that a 28-year-old PhD student in criminology at Washington State University, where there's tons of other female students, there's sororities, there's a ton of people that he could have targeted at this college that he attended, drove across state lines from Washington, which is a non-death penalty state, into Idaho, which is a death penalty state. And he drove there to commit a very heinous crime that would obviously warrant the death penalty. Then he drives his own personal vehicle, registered in his name, directly to the King Roadhouse, a house that investigators cannot prove that he's ever been to. Now, he's going into this house full of people, lights on, cars parked out front, armed with only a knife. And he's going in to attack these victims. Victims who investigators cannot prove that he has any connection to whatsoever. So, are we seeing a pattern here? It seems as though investigators are having a really hard time connecting the dots. I mean, he's going to a strange house to attack victims that he has no connection to. So he gets inside the house and he attacks 4 healthy young adults, one being a 6'4" male who's athletic, armed with only a knife. And he attacks these victims and inflicts multiple injuries. All of these victims have defensive wounds, and they're spread out over this house. So it's not like these victims were condensed into one area. They're paired up in 2 separate bedrooms on 2 separate levels that are across the house from each other. So this suspect has to walk from floor to floor. And like I said, he's armed with only a knife. And he commits this crime in an extremely short amount of time by himself. So after committing this very physical attack on 4 different victims, he leaves the house. And as he's leaving the house, he runs into one of the 2 roommates who were not attacked. So he runs into Dylan Mortensen on the way out of the house. He sees her, she sees him, and for some reason, he decides to leave her alone. After taking the lives of 4 people, he decides to leave a witness. And he doesn't seem concerned that Dylan might call for help. And ironically, she does not. So he guessed right. Now, doesn't this seem odd? I mean, in order to commit this crime in such a short amount of time for one person using one weapon, it would seem as though this individual would need to be familiar with the layout of the house, maybe familiar with these victims, maybe, be a ninja. Because in my opinion, it seems almost impossible for one individual who is not a trained, knife expert to go into this house and take the lives of 4 individuals in such a short amount of time and then get out of the house uninjured or without leaving any significant evidence behind. Something on an immovable object that would indicate that he was definitely inside this house. Because this knife sheath does not prove that Bryan Kohberger was inside this house. It only proves that the knife sheath was inside the house. I mean, to me, this does not sound believable. It doesn't sound believable to me that just some random individual with no experience using a knife that we know of. I mean, I feel like if Bryan Kohberger had training using a knife, that would be something that we would have heard by now. So it seems unbelievable to me that this individual could go into this house, do this much damage, and get out unscathed, and then just drive off into the night, go home, take a shower, call his mom, and then go to Costco. I mean, think about that. It sounds ridiculous. Now, something that also raises a red flag for me is that this prosecution was taking Bryan Kohberger to trial for the death penalty. It seems as though they would be pretty sure about the results of their investigation. They said that only one knife was used and that Bryan Kohberger was the sole suspect. But when Bill Thompson is doing these interviews, he doesn't seem so sure. He says that it's a possibility that there could have been multiple suspects, that their evidence doesn't, show that, but it's a possibility, and that it's a definite possibility that there could have been multiple weapons.
I also think it is possible that he had another weapon of some type. I don't know if it was a blunt force weapon or something. I think that it is likely that he had more than one weapon with him, but we don't know what that actually would have been.
So, does this sound like a prosecutor who's absolutely sure about the details of this investigation? So let's talk about this idea that one suspect went into this house with multiple weapons. Because in my opinion, after seeing the autopsy reports, it does seem as though multiple weapons were used in order to commit this crime. So, what are the chances that one suspect goes into this house to commit this crime holding multiple weapons? I mean, think about this. So, Bryan Kohberger walked into this house holding a knife in one hand, with the sheath still on it, according to law enforcement, and another weapon in the other hand. So this suspect would have definitely needed a free hand. They're running all over this house, up and down the stairs. They're manipulating their victims. How is this suspect holding on to two weapons while running around this house? I mean, that doesn't sound strange, that this suspect has both of his hands full, and he's running all over this house, up and down the stairs, with a weapon in each hand. I mean, picture that in your mind, that this person would be holding two weapons. One of the weapons has the knife sheath on it still, which seems ridiculous. I mean, he would obviously know that he would have to put this weapon down in order to take the sheath off of the knife in the first place. So it seems ridiculous. And if the knife sheath is not going to be attached to your body, why bother even bringing it? I mean, that defeats the whole purpose of even having a knife sheath. So I think that it's very odd to believe that one individual was using multiple weapons, because they would need to have a free hand. There's no way this guy is running into this house with his hands full. It just doesn't make sense. In my opinion, multiple weapons would indicate that there were multiple attackers. Some of the details of this case that the prosecution is asking us to believe really doesn't make a lot of sense when you look at it in a real world situation. It would be a stretch for Brian Koberger, who we've never heard had any experience training with knives, had no experience with knife fighting, went into this house and efficiently took the lives of 4 young adults all by himself in an extremely short amount of time without getting injured himself. I mean, yeah, are K-bars effective? Absolutely. But you still have to know how to use them in order for them to be that effective. Could you use the pommel end of a K-bar to deliver a blunt force strike? Absolutely. But for someone to use both ends of this K-bar knife and do it effectively without dropping the knife or having it knocked out of their hand, they would need to have some skills. And in my opinion, someone who buys this knife on Amazon on a family account would not have those skills. I don't see someone who has no history of violence going into this house and being able to be calm and cool while committing this crime. I mean, I don't believe that he just lucked out by leaving this crime scene uninjured. I just don't believe that. Something else that I want to talk about is, why do all of the details of this case seem to be wiped away rather quickly? Why does the prosecution and investigators want to remove these details as soon as possible? If you really think about it, the victims were cremated very, very quickly. 3 weeks after the crimes occurred, Chief Fry pulled up to the King Roadhouse, an active crime scene, in a U-Haul truck, and they began loading the furniture and belongings from the victims into this U-Haul. I mean, that's odd, because they weren't done with this investigation, yet they were already moving things out of this house. Now, moving the furniture is kind of a big deal because it would change the acoustics from inside this house. So when investigators are going in to see what could be heard and who could hear what, not having the furniture in the house would change the acoustics. If jurors wanted to walk through this crime scene, removing the furniture would change, the outcome of what they would hear compared to what the people heard inside the house on the night of the crimes. Not that that would have mattered, because they actually knocked the whole entire house down. So they actually removed the entire crime scene and buried it underground. I mean, that doesn't seem odd to anyone that they've removed all of the details and all of the evidence from this crime scene rather quickly. Maybe that has to do with the university itself. Maybe the University of Idaho wanted to get rid of a lot of this evidence right away because they didn't want it to reflect badly on their university. But it just always seems strange to me that they removed a lot of the, vital pieces of this case so quickly. I mean, it just seems strange to me. But let me know what you think in the comments. Do you think that this attacker would have walked into this house with their hands full, holding a weapon in each hand and not having a free hand? Do you think it's strange that they've removed a lot of the evidence and the details of this case so quickly? Some before they even had a suspect in custody. And do you think that it's odd that Brian Koberger pled guilty, removing any more evidence and any more details of this investigation? Because to me, Brian Koberger pleading guilty was the last step in removing everything that had to do with this investigation and everything that had to do with this case. Let me know what you think. And thanks for hanging out with me today. I really do appreciate it. And I hope that you guys had an amazing day. We'll see you next time.